Hello and welcome to the first of our panel discussions this morning from IPC Apex Expo. It's materials management within the factory. The biggest financial gain for EMS companies in recent years has been improved inventory control and improved materials management, which ultimately reduces machine downtime. What are the latest technologies in this space? That's what we're going to discuss today with our panel. I'm delighted to be joined by Bob Black from Isegi Automation. Hello, Bob.
Good morning, Trevor.
Good morning.
Always good to be with you.
Yes, and then to my left I have Liam Carlson, who's a product manager for materials handling at Mycronic.
Morning, Trevor. Nice to be here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, getting straight into it, we'll start with you, Bob. What are the applicable standards for component storage, and why is it important to store devices in a 60-degree relative humidity environment?
Well, that question confuses me a little bit because we store MSD-sensitive components at less than 5% relative humidity.
Right.
And a 60 to 65 degree Fahrenheit temperature.
Okay.
So we wouldn't do 60% humidity.
Usually 5%. Sorry.
You'd be throwing a lot of components away very quickly. But it's important because there's an increasing number of components which are very sensitive to moisture. And managing those components is important. So we keep the whole tower dehumidified. And we manage also the timing as the components come out to the line. So we try not to pull the MSD components too early.
Right.
You can actually split them. You can pull the regular components that you have no problem to store outside. And then just before production, you can pull only the MSD components so that the exposure time is less.
Okay. And are there any specific IPC standards that regulate this?
Yes, there are, and there's a couple of EIA standards too. I don't have the numbers committed to memory, but we follow all the applicable regulations.
Okay. And Liam, would you concur then with that? That you're storing your components also at that sort of level?
Yeah, we typically store our components at under 5% relative humidity as well. So I completely agree with Bob here. I think that the only benefit, I think, to storing in a 60% relative humidity environment would be the reduced risk of ESD. But I mean, then you have increased risk of oxidation of components, and
right.
As we can see, a majority of the components in the industry are more and more sensitive. So we do the same. We store all our components at under 5% relative 5%. Humidity, and try to provide kits just in time to the machine, so that we avoid having them out in an exposed environment for as long as possible.
Right. Okay. So, Bob, do larger towers reduce the exposure to humidity over time for components?
Well, I don't think the size of the tower is really too applicable. I mean, in all our towers, whether it be a 4,000 capacity tower or whether it be a 1,000 part capacity tower, we keep the same levels of humidity. Of course, in a larger physical inside space in the tower, we use a more powerful dehumidifying technology,
right,
in order to keep up with that. But that's the only difference. We keep all of them at the same levels.
I mean, well, put it this way, does it mean that there's going to be less time where you're opening the door to bring reels out?
Well,
if you're using a larger tower?
We design it so that our stacks are made by an elevator, and the slot that goes into the machine is only about 2 inches high.
Right.
So we minimize that, and only when the outside door is open. Do we have any exposure, but it's minimal. So since the stack is collected when the tower is still closed, the door is only open when the operator is going to remove the stack.
Right.
So you maybe have 5 seconds or 10 seconds of exposure time, right, and you don't lose much humidity on that.
Yeah. I mean, and that's one of the big benefits of using these tower systems. I mean, before that, we used to use MSD cabinets, and you open a door and it would take a certain amount of time, maybe half an hour, to get back up to relative humidity.
Well, I think, too, the record keeping is important. I think the tower knows when the part goes out. It can start the clock. Mm-hmm. When the part comes back, it can stop the clock. Nobody has to write anything down. Nobody has to have a checklist. So many times they take something out of a dry stack tower, and then they'd forget to write it down, and then you've got to reconstruct the record later, and this way everything is handled in the background automatically.
Right.
So that's an advantage that towers bring.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Liam, where do you think component towers should be located? Should it be at the incoming goods area, or should it be next to the storage tower?
I don't think that there's a definitive answer, to be honest. I think it's extremely customer dependent. Depending on the number of components that you're storing, the type of material that you're storing, some customers might benefit from having this in a stockroom type of setup, closer to the incoming goods section, where they do almost a warehouse solution.
Yeah.
But depending on the number of jobs and the boards that you're providing and producing, there's a lot of benefit to having towers close to the line as a type of buffer storage, and I think that's been our philosophy throughout our tower's lifetime, so to speak. That we're capable of storing components close to the line so that we can have them at the kitting station as quickly as possible for fast turnover, and then as well to automate the process of providing reels when the pick and place machine starts to run out of components, so that you don't experience any unscheduled downtime. I mean, that for me is the goal with towers and any type of material handling solution, is to avoid downtime for the pick and place machine.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Okay, Bob, you've recently come out with a system that integrates the component counters into the tower. In fact, I think we might even have a picture of it here. Do we have a picture of it? No? There we go. So maybe you can describe what we're looking at here, Bob.
Well, you're looking at the back of an MIM interface module, which is kind of a half tower storage, a half interface. And you have two elevators on either side, what we call EEMs, which can deliver the parts to the robotic transport carts there and delivery to the line. Mm-hmm. In the middle is the Nordson Assure component counter. And so anything in the block of towers connected to this MIM can be counted automatically without people. So on third shift, if you've got some downtime, you can say, I want these 100 unique IDs counted tonight. In the morning when you come in, you'll have all the updated counting results. Mm-hmm. Also, anything coming back from the line or anything that's being delivered to this tower block by the robots can be counted before it's put away. Okay. So for a high volume situation, it's very useful. For smaller customers, a standalone tower connected by software with our system works fine. But we're seeing more and more interest in the fully automated solution, and we're selling quite a few of them.
Right. And are these component counters? I mean, are they able to detect variances within a reel?
There's a wide variance, to use your word, between the quality of component counters. I mean, there are some, the Nordson is good, several others are also good, are quite sensitive. So they can connect voids, missing parts in certain sections of the reel. They can see size changes. They can count quantity very accurately. And there are others that are less good. So, it's up to the customer to make sure that they acquire a counter that meets their needs.
Right, okay. So, Liam, how far in advance of each job should you pull components for kitting?
Well, I think as close to the job as possible, to be honest. Our ambition here is to have just-in-time delivery of components. You don't want components, especially as we mentioned now, with more components being MSD sensitive, lying out, waiting to be put into the pick-and-place machine when they're finished kitting already. So we try to optimize our job sequence so that our customers are aware of how long a specific job is taking in the production, so that the kitting process can be done as close to the changeover as possible. And exactly. So we pride ourselves, I think, on having one of the shortest setup times in the industry, with the Agilus feeder and all of the parts around that, and kitting assistance and so on. The biggest benefit for the customer, I think, is to provide the reels just in time, rather than to have them sitting around waiting to be put into the production, both from a quality perspective with MSD components, but also to make sure that the operator is focusing on what is actually important at that time, and that's running the job and making sure that the pick and place machines are going at full capacity.
Right. So, just to be clear, your systems are going from the storage tower to the kitting area, and then from the kitting area straight to the machine.
Yes.
Do either of you have a view on these at-line systems? That you see storage carts, as it were, being next to the machine, or is it? Do you think there's a value in doing that, or do you think it's better just to take it straight from the kitting area to the pick and place machine?
Well, I can comment on it. I mean, there are certain customers that might be interested in that approach, but the problem I see is most line areas are very congested. If you look at the trend in pick and place machines today, their smaller size modules are closer together. You go look at a Fuji, NXT3 module, and where are you going to put a cart in front of that? Any place you put a cart in front of that is going to block your access to the machine. So there's no room at the line for doing that. In some older machines that are far apart, you get conveyors in between or whatever, there is room for something like that. But I think that it would be a limited subset of customers who would be interested in that.
Right. Okay. And of course now you've got AIVs that can deliver these things to the line quite efficiently and quite quickly. So if you get your setup correct, then there shouldn't be a need for it in some ways. Okay. And I think I asked you this before, Bob, but is there a recommended formula for the number of or the capacity of towers per line?
Well, that's a real question. Of course, we'd like to see every customer put every component he's got in towers. That would be our optimum situation. I'm sure Liam's too, but
right.
It's not going to happen. I mean, we look at it practically. If you've got components that are seldom used, and I mean once, twice, 3 times a year, are you going to use that reel? It doesn't belong in an automated storage tower. It belongs on a shelf. And so we integrate with our software outside storage locations, right? So it can be part of the same software environment, but just not inside the tower. Recently, we've finished a big development project in what we call automated buffer software, where we can actually link with the ERP or the MES system of the customer, look at his next 5, 6, 7 days of production, and automate the things that need to be brought forward to the towers and the things that can be left out or
right.
postponed to that. Because you're never going to have a customer that has 100% of his components in towers. It's very rare that somebody will invest that much capital to do that. But so what we try to do is manage the flow accurately and that they have the components they need when they need them. What Liam said earlier about the primary job of a storage system is to reduce downtime in the pick and place system and make it run spot on.
Yeah.
So that's what you need to do.
Yeah, great. Okay, and finally, any examples of where customers have had reduced a huge amount of downtime through implementing storage towers?
Yeah, I think we've seen that at multiple customers. I think not only here in the US, but I think in Europe and in Asia as well. If we look at Gables Engineering, for example, a customer of ours down in the US, they've had significant reductions in pick and place downtime, as well as the number of operators that they have to use for material handling. When pulling material off what we would consider the traditional shelves, it takes a lot of time, and then to find the reels and make sure that you have the correct material and make sure that everything has been packed correctly when it comes to MSD regulations. It's a lot of work to do. So, I mean, to fully automate that process, and like Bob mentioned, to have everything running around or running in the background while the operator solely focuses on retrieving the material when it's put in front of him and putting it into the machine or into the pick and place machine, I think has a huge impact. We've seen that at multiple customers.
Right. Okay. Yeah, and I'm sure, Bob, we've spoken in the past. You've seen many customers have made significant, savings.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't expect it. I mean, often customers aren't aware of their own inefficiencies. We had one big EMS company, top 5 EMS company in Mexico, or a plant where we installed towers close to the line. And they had a 27 module Fuji line. 295,000 CPH, and they justified our towers based on labor savings pulling kits. Right. We hooked up a feature we have. Most modern placement machines today have a feature called low reel warning, where if the reel gets down to 500 parts or 400 parts or whatever the customer sets, it will warn the customer. Well, that warning can go automatically to the tower. The tower will interrupt what it's doing, will pull a replacement reel for that, deliver it to the line, whether it be by person or by robot, depending on what system they have. And it arrives before it runs out, so it can be spliced or it can be loaded on another feeder and hot swapped, and the line isn't down. In the first quarter, this customer was shocked to increase his production on that line by 9%. And the 9% meant his ROI of 1.5 years on labor cost savings went to about 4 months.
Right.
To pay for the tower. So, it can have a dramatic impact, and sometimes the customer doesn't even expect it.
Doesn't expect it. There you go. Well, it's certainly the way forward. But, the strange thing is there's still only, between 10 and 20% people of manufacturers using them. I mean, we're still at the beginning of that transition.
Isn't it wonderful? We have such a bright future ahead of us.
That's true. Okay, well, anyway, it's a fascinating subject. It's going to continue to evolve, and I look forward to having future discussions with you guys about, the technologies that help to improve materials management in the factory.
Towers have been around for a while. I don't know when you guys made your first tower, but these guys are, as I said earlier, the grandfathers of towers. I mean, they really introduced the concept to the market when it was a totally foreign concept to most people.
Well, it came from the drug industry, didn't it? Or was it drugs, or was it cassettes? They were.
I have to admit something about S&G, which they don't tell very often, but it's true. The original design of our tower was a European red box machine for DVD rentals.
DVDs.
And when that thing went a little bit south with streaming and all the new technologies, they converted into a storage tower. So there you go.
There you go. That's interesting. That's an interesting anecdote. Anyway, I want to thank you once again for taking part today. Bob Black from Isagi, and of course Liam Carlson from Mycronic. And I want to thank our audience for watching. Coming up after the break, we'll be coming on to our next panel discussion today on etching, cleaning, and coating for harsh environments.
Why do something 3 times when you can do it only once? Using N1 Pass technology, BTU's new Profile Tracer is a next-generation thermal profiling tool, providing real-time data acquisition for oven optimization. It identifies inconsistencies due to temperature variables at both the product level and the heat source. Profile Tracer measures dual temperature locations as well as vibration, all in one pass, giving you time to attend the more important things in life.
Ko-Young is leading a smart revolution that will change the world of electronics manufacturing. Based on our pioneering True 3D measurement-based inspection technology, we revolutionize the solder paste inspection market to such great lengths that 1 in 2 SPIs sold today is from Ko-Young. Building our SPI technology, we expanded to automated optical inspection, also known as AOI. Every year, we introduce new award-winning innovations and have proudly earned the respect from thousands of customers across diverse industries. Aside from our R&D center in Korea, we have research facilities focused on artificial intelligence and deep learning across the world to help us further develop proprietary AI technologies for your challenges. With our global network of sales and service centers, we aim to respond quickly to your needs and to deliver the highest level of customer satisfaction.